Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Astebreed. Just get your jokes out there right now. You never go Astebreed. I don't want my Astebreed. That would smell terrible. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is kind of an awkward name, but it's a great game. I normally try not to, give that away right off the bat, but this is a game that I have not seen getting that much attention, and admittedly, I kind of wrote it off too. I did play it at PAX East. I enjoyed what I played of it, but then it came out and I was like, oh, another space shoot 'em up, not really my style. We've had Strike Suit Zero came out last year, was okay. A lot of people really like it. We've had a plethora of 2D space shooters that have come out since then and around that time, and none of them have really tickled my fancy, but I will go on record, for me personally, as saying Astebreed is probably the best shooter that I have played, or the most enjoyable shooter that I have played since Jamestown. So we're going to get started here. It's going to be a little bit of a difficult game to talk about as we get playing, but if you're looking for, points of reference for this, this is a little bit similar to, a side-scrolling shooter, almost like a Gradius or an R-Type or something like that, but it also has elements of, like, over-the-shoulder kind of shooting, almost like a Space Harrier type thing, but the real vibe that I get for the most part is Panzer Dragoon. I get a lot of Panzer Dragoon Orta vibes from this. So we're going to play the game. We can do chapter select, but we're going to start normal difficulty on chapter 1. That seems fairly reasonable. We'll get a pretty good feel for things there, and we'll get started. So you're gonna have to give me a second here to actually explain what's going on. Luckily, we probably will have a bit of a story section. The game looks beautiful. I hope the frame rate holds up while I'm recording here. It dips occasionally, but it does have a frame rate counter at the top of the taskbar, and it typically runs around 60 frames per second. Okay, so as we play Astebreed, how does it work? What the heck is going on? I'm going to do my best to explain it to you because it's going to be very, very confusing otherwise. Basically, we are this ship on the far left side of the screen. We have a few different attacks, and they have charge moves, and they have just like tapping the button moves. So if we tap the A button on my 360 controller here, I haven't touched this with PC controls yet, so I don't know if keyboard and mouse works fine, but the 360 controller works wonderfully. I have to assume that it probably works fine. It is out on Steam. If I tap the A button, this is what we get, just a shot out in front of us. If I tap the X button, this is what we get, kind of like a more scattered shot type thing. And if I tap the B button, we have this sword, as you can see, that cuts things up. So we've got melee and, bullet kind of combat as well, pardon me. Got an almond stuck in my throat there. Now, we also have charge moves. If we charge up square, or sorry, not square, X, it does this, kind of like radius area of effect type shooting maneuver. And what's kind of neat, you might not be able to see it if you're not paying close attention, but let's try to get it, like, focused on one individual enemy, like a big one. You can see that those, like, ticks start ticking up there. That indicates the amount of damage that the enemy will take. So every, half second that we keep it on them, it ticks up a little bit. And when it turns red, that indicates that it's fatal damage, so we don't have to charge it up anymore. So this X maneuver here is really good at taking out when you have a lot of enemies that have relatively low HP around you, or if you want to do something like crowd control, take out a number of missiles that are getting shot at you. If we hold down the A button, which is, remember, like our straight ahead shot type thing, we shouldn't do that here. We should actually just use our other ability, the area of effect ability, to shoot down these missiles as they come in. I apologize for talking over the dialogue as well. It's in undubbed Japanese. I actually don't know if there is English dubbing, but most people, I think, prefer to play the games with the authentic voice acting. Although it is a little, hard to follow the story sometimes if you're not a Japanese speaker. I know Kate was able to follow it fine. She's not a native Japanese speaker, but she does speak Japanese. But I can't follow it at all because there's no time for me to look down at the subtitles when things are going so crazy. And of course, now we have a boss fight, and I haven't even fully described everything that's happening. But anyway, this is our charge up maneuver with the A button down. So it's a little bit more high damage, but also you have to kind of aim in a direction and then hold the button down. And then it does a little bit more damage, but through a much narrower scope. So, apart from that, we also still have our slashing attack. Now, we also have an EX attack with the Y button, which you can see right there, just does a lot of damage. So there's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of strategy, and I think that's what makes it, a lot of variety is what I meant to say there, but there is a lot of strategy as well, which I think makes it a little bit more interesting than a lot of space shooters where, you just have shooting and missiles, and that's fine. I don't play a lot of bullet hell space shooters, so I'm not necessarily an authority to talk to on stuff like that. But careful here. I do think that the variety of tools you kind of have at your disposal here work really neat. And it's also really cool that you always go through this, or often go through this, like, perspective switching stuff. So mixing up your strategies is very worthwhile. I should probably do, like, an EX attack here. All the information on the screen is presented pretty effectively. The only thing that's kind of bad about it is that there's, or not even bad, but, like, a takeaway to a certain extent, is that there's so much information on the screen that it's hard to, get everything that you're supposed to get. in a relatively normal span of time, if that makes any sense. Like, there's so much information on the screen that it's hard to parse it all, especially if you're talking at exactly the same time. So that was one level of Astebreed. We're going to keep going here. I believe there's 6 or 7 chapters in the game. The game, on the whole, maybe about an hour and 15 minutes long. I haven't beaten it yet, but I watched Kate beat it. That sounded terrible. Yeah, maybe like an hour, somewhere in that region, at least for your first playthrough. But like a game like Panzer Dragoon, it's meant to, or Panzer Dragoon Order at least, it's meant to be played multiple times. Now, there is a huge story element going on here as well. Basically, it's hard for me to follow the story as mentioned. There are some cutscenes. The cutscenes are told relatively well. As far as stories go, this one is presented among the best that I've ever seen in, you know, this kind of genre. Oftentimes, these space shooters don't really have much narrative focus, which is fine, because they're focused on, you know, gameplay instead. Oh, careful here. That being said, again, it is a little difficult for me to follow the story based on the fact that I don't speak Japanese, so I would have to follow the story more appropriately, read all the subtitles that are happening down at the bottom, which is just not gonna happen, given that I'm also focused on dodging all this stuff here. Now, it's not, you know, your bullet hell shooter where if you get hit once you die. You do have a health meter. You do replenish your health as well. So, it's not impossible. It seems a little bit more on the accessible side, at least on normal difficulty. Let's put it this way. The normal difficulty actually seems normal. It doesn't seem like you have to be some kind of, like, no offense, but, like, freak of nature, basically. I think you'll take that as a point of personal pride if you are the kind of person who does really well in games like, you know, Toho, for example. I don't mean freak of nature as in, you know, any judge on your character, just that you're amazing at games like this. For a more average or casual player, normal seems like normal difficulty. I've died a few times, will probably die more before I actually manage to finish it, but have been able to have fun and kind of play around with it in spite of that. You don't die in one hit, that I think is a bonus in a game like this. It does get a little tricky, though, as time goes on. I don't think you're ever able to beat that the first time. I will say that because there's so many enemies, you know, it's one of those games that's definitely focused more on the, like, throwing a ton of enemies at you side than it is on, you know, a little bit more subtlety. It's way over the top, which is a good thing. I think it works for the game, but it does mean that you got to get used to the fact that enemies are just going to blow by you a lot. Like, at the end of the level, there's actually, like, a screen that tells you how many enemies did you kill, and typically, it's like 40%, a little bit over 40% for me. So let's see, I think what we should probably do here is try to hack these guys up. I don't use my EX attacks enough, I'm sure. I just cut a meteor in half with my fucking Gundam sword. I think that's pretty baller. Just in general, this is gonna sound maybe a little offensive, and I don't mean it to come across like that, but I'm not the kind of person who is necessarily, like, super into Japanese games, for the most part, and I'm not trying to, you know, Phil Fish myself here and say that, you know, they haven't made a Japanese game in 20 years or whatever. He may or may not have said. But, for the most part, you know, I have no particular reverence for one country's games over another, but I will say that despite having perhaps even a negative opinion modifier towards some games in the Japanese style, this game has won me over, and I think that is as glowing an endorsement as I could possibly give. We have another boss fight coming on here. And I do really like space shooters. I have a, you know, the positive opinion bonus there probably works itself out, but I think this is genuinely the best indie shooter. I don't know if it's fully fits in the definition of what's indie, but I think it is genuinely the best indie shooter that I've played since Jamestown. At least it's the first time that I can remember being excited about an indie shooter since I played Jamestown back in 2011. Might have even been 2010. I think it was early 2011. Anyway, let's work this over here. We're doing pretty well. Not a great time so far, but that's okay. As you can see, the levels are relatively short. You know, each one's not going to take you 20 minutes. I think we did get a shot off there. Oh, and we got another tiny one off there. I'm not doing super well, though. I think, generally speaking, the melee attack is like your fastest way of dealing damage. That's what it at least seems to me so far, and also a good way to deal with, like, incoming projectiles that are not red. I believe red projectiles we can't actually, you know, knock down with our sword. That being said, of course, it puts you much closer to harm's way as well. All right, that worked pretty well. I like the constantly shifting perspective. I can see how it might be considered a little bit disorienting as well, but I think it works. I think it keeps things feeling frenetic, like, you know, like they're moving like crazy. All right, so see if we can sneak in a good shot here. We did an EX attack, and we got some. Oh, use the wild EX attack 10 times. Okay, I did that. That's only my 10th time using that EX attack. That's actually kind of funny, considering that I've played this game for like a little bit over an hour at this point in my estimation. Pretty close to a victory here. Probably should be using the A button attack in a situation like this. This might finish it off. If not, it's going to be real close. Yeah. Cool, so maybe we'll play one more level and then we'll move along. Overall, I really, really like Astebreed. I find it really easy to recommend. The one caveat I will say is, you know whether or not you're into games like this by watching this. If you're not into space shooters, the price point is prohibitive that I think people who are not fans of the genre have a much more difficult time kind of justifying that. It's 20% off for its opening week sale, which might be over by the time this video goes up. But that puts it at $16.99, I think, and it's, or maybe $15.99, and it's 20 bucks normally if you run the math on that. So 20 bucks, that's a very premium price point for a game like this. That being said, you know, it's a playism, localized or published joint. You know, there's a price to pay for pulling stuff from other regions onto Steam, basically, and you know, for niche products especially, I can understand why they're priced a little higher. I think if you're a fan of the genre, you would get $20 out of this easily. I hesitate to say easily just because, you know, it seems like one of those words that is maybe, you know, loaded, but I really think you would. I paid 50 bucks for Panzer Dragoon Orta back in 2003. I wasn't even into the Panzer Dragoon series or anything. I was just like, this looks cool, and I think I bought it, and I was like, well, you know, school's over, so I need something to keep me occupied for summer vacation. I'll just buy one game from EB Games, then beat Panzer Dragoon Orta in like 5 hours. I was like, well, okay, I'll get World Series Baseball 2003 then. Not that Panzer Dragoon Orta is a bad game. It's actually some of my fondest memories from the original Xbox. But anyway, I totally forgot what I was saying. I think it's a very impressive game. I'm glad it made its way onto Steam, and I think that people who are fans of the shooter genre will find a lot to like here. Probably, I would say that if you're, you know, an experienced shooter fan, you're probably gonna look to play this on the higher difficulty levels, because, I mean, I'm getting hit like crazy just because it's impossible for me not to get hit, because there's so much information that, again, it's a little difficult to parse it all up. But if you're an experienced, you know, player of the genre, you may find it a little bit easier. There's another move I didn't mention. It's called the Blade Dash. I gave myself a shield with my EX move there. Blade Dash is basically just like circle plus a direction. You do like a dash in one direction that typically will kill enemies in 1 or 2 hits. But anyway, that was a terrible attack there. I can't stress enough, I really like the kind of combat style of the game. The fact that you have these super varied attacks, and like they do different things depending on whether you charge them or whether you hold them. It's just a little bit more unique than just holding the fire button down and then dodging, you know, your little ship away from all the individual particles. Not that there's anything wrong with that when it's done properly as well. Now, this level I don't think is too long, so once we finish this, we'll end the video. Suffice it to say, the main negative that I can say, and I hate to bring this kind of stuff up because it's not like this argument kind of needs more, you know, fuel. Oh, that was one hell of an attack. Yeah, it's not like this argument needs more fuel, but at $20, it is very much on the more expensive side when it comes to, you know, indie stuff like this. I think I've said my piece with respect to, you know, the price of it and the fact that it's a localized game and it's a niche product, blah, blah, blah. I understand the business aspects of it, but that doesn't necessarily change how much you have to spend to get it into your hands and onto your Steam library, right? Like, that's, the business reasons might not really be relevant to you at all. Which is also totally fine and completely understandable. But in any case, you know, that's the reality of the situation. If you're maybe on the fence about it, I would totally suggest waiting for a sale. Maybe you can pick it up a little bit cheaper. But at the same time, you know, I wouldn't be wary thinking you're not going to get your money's worth. I think if you're into this kind of game, you're going to get your money's worth. You would get more money's worth at a lower price point, but I think you'll find that the $20 value proposition, if you're passionate about what you're seeing here, is going to work out in your favor. Now, watch out for these, and I think we may have a boss fight now, or maybe instead the ship just gets cut in half by this sweet-ass cannon here. And that might be the end of this level, or we might actually have like a set change here. Yeah, I think we may actually like go down through the atmosphere here and enter the planet, which would be cool. Playism's kind of been knocking it out of the park lately to begin with. You know, they published or localized... Because I don't know, I don't think they're the publisher, I think they're just technically the localizer, which, you know, it's not necessarily a meaningful distinction for a lot of people. I just want to be 100% accurate. Probably should have put a seizure warning in front of this video as well. But in any case, you know, they brought over Carol Blaster. Carol Blaster's been getting a great reception. Maybe not necessarily in the same level of as Cave Story was, but lots of people seem to be really enjoying that game, and I really enjoyed that game too, for what it was. And now Astebreed, excellent as well. I'm really impressed with the kind of stuff that they have brought over. Also, Unholy Heights last year, which, you know, not everybody's cup of tea, but I liked it. I'm actually very nearly dead. Hold up here, Briz. Oh, my God. Oh, yep, I died. Well, I'm not proud of myself. Maybe we'll give it another crack. Because what's actually nice about this game, at least on normal difficulty, it has really, like, forgiving checkpoints. You don't have to start levels over from the beginning. I also think, you know, this is not gonna, it doesn't look like it was made in the CryEngine, right? This is not gonna compete for, you know, best looking game 2014. But I think it looks really, really good, and, you know, here's one for all the people that come into, you know, 50% of the Let's Look Ats that I do, and they're like, is anybody else sick of, like, you know, games that look like they're on the Super Nintendo? Well, here you go. This is definitely something that, more reminiscent of a different era. Kind of, it looks like a, you know, an Xbox One or even, you know, an Xbox 360 game. I think, at least from that generation. And there are some visually impressive set pieces in it. You know, things up close don't look amazing, but, you know, from an artistic standpoint, they work totally fine. Now, try this, and that's not the move I should be doing. Let's try to do, there we go, a decent EX attack there, I thought. And we'll get that ticking up, ticking up, ticking up, ticking up. Ooh, he got away before I could really capitalize on that. And we'll keep this up here. Music's good too, I've been talking over it. And again, I can't stress enough that the story is something that I just can't really talk about that much because so much of it is basically inaccessible to me. And it will be to you too, unless you speak Japanese or have the most incredible vision of all time and can actually like pay attention to those subtitles at the bottom while also dodging all these shots. There are some, you know, story cutscenes, but I feel like I'm missing something because I don't read the subtitles, and then things in the cutscenes don't necessarily make sense to me, and I'm like, well, maybe it's because I didn't see the cutscenes. Or maybe it's because I couldn't read the subtitles, is what I mean. I can't remember. This is possibly the end of this level. I'm not trying to wish it would end faster. Oh, we have like a little boss fight here. Okay. I didn't remember this part. Alright, so try this attack. This is actually one of the trickier fights in the game so far. Because the dodging in that little circle is really annoying. But once you get through that, I don't think it's going to be so bad. There we go. Pretty decent Omni Slash there. Should probably get the hell out of dodge before these shots take me the F down. Am I almost dead? I keep hearing beeps, and beeps are almost never a good sign when you're inside of any kind of spacecraft, so... Like, you never have a beep that says, like, everything's working according to plan, boss. It's always like, hey, you have no oxygen. You know, be careful. Oh, that was stupid of me. Always more than one thing to dodge, right? It's never just one thing. Amarie lied to us all. Now, wait till this shooting is done, and then we'll hold another one here, and it'll get the job done. Okay. That did not create a shield. That did an Omni Slash. I think there's different EX moves. I just haven't learned what they actually all are yet. And this fight is actually going surprisingly well. So, just hold it down here. Oh! Probably should have gotten out of the way of that one a little faster, but I really thought that that was actually going to finish the job. This should be our final barrage here necessary. It's going to be close. Maybe one more. Oh my god. Really fired back with some gusto there. In any case, that's going to be the end of this chapter, and that's going to be the end of this Let's Look At of Astebreed. Check it out on Steam. Again, the only real negative beyond the fact that the story is a little bit complex and hard. Well, I mean, I don't mean complex thematically. I mean, you know, there's a lot of dialogue that goes on that I can't really understand. Beyond that fact, the only negative I can really offer conceivably is that it's expensive. 20 bucks, probably by the time this video goes up. Maybe still 16 as part of the opening week sale, but if you're into what you see, go pick it up on Steam. I think you'll get your money's worth. It's I've had a lot of fun with it so far. I'm not sure what the replayability is going to be like, but I've had, you know, fun with it so far in spite of that. Again, best shooter of this kind that I've played since Jamestown, not counting like first-person shooters or anything like that in there. Although I might like Jamestown more than most recent first-person shooters anyway. Yeah, link in the video description below. Pick it up on Steam if you're interested, or check it out on Steam. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.